Hey coders, welcome to my channel. In this video, we are going to look at Reflection API and one of its very popular implementation called Dependency Injection. So if you have worked with any framework, you must have heard about dependency injections. So first of all, we are going to look into Reflection API and then we will implement this dependency injection in order to understand its concepts using Reflection API. So first part is going to be about Reflection API and the second part is going to be about the dependency injection. So let's get started with the first part. So the concept of reflection in PHP or any programming language is that it's like giving your code a mirror so that it can look at its own structure and inspect its own classes, methods, properties, independent functions, interfaces, abstract methods, extensions, basically anything that is part of that code. Through Reflection API, the code itself can inspect its own code while the code is being run as well. This gives the code a huge power through which it can modify its code while it's being executed. There are a lot of usages of this Reflection API in practical world, but the two most that I'm sure you must have all heard about is dependency injection and unit testing. So we will understand the practical usage of this Reflection API by implementing dependency injection. But before that, we need to be familiar with some of the basic concepts that are available to us through this Reflection API, which comes by default with PHP. Over here, you can see this is the official documentation of PHP. On the right side over here, you can see different classes which are available to us in this API. So over here, you can see the list of different classes which are available to us to reflect or inspect different aspects of a PHP program or code. Obviously, we are not going to cover all of these classes, but we are going to cover some of the very basic classes that you will most commonly encounter if you are working with Reflection APIs. And for the rest, you can obviously build on what we are learning today. Okay, so this is Reflection class that is available to us. As you can see, it has only two methods, export and get modifier. So we won't be using the Reflection class itself directly. Most of the time, we will be using this Reflection class if we want to inspect a PHP class. So if you want to inspect a class, a PHP class, this is the class that you will be utilizing. Through this class, you can inspect any PHP class. And these are the constants. Then it has one property called name. And these are the rest of the methods. Again, the list of the method is very long. Obviously, we will not be covering all of them, but we will be covering the most common ones. Okay, then we have this reflection class constant. So if you want to inspect any constant belonging to a class, this is the class that you will go to. And if it's any constant outside the class, then this is the reflection class that you will be using called reflection constant, then for enums and so on. So if you see over here, this is called reflection extension. So basically, if you have any PHP extension and you want to inspect it, this is the class that you will utilize. Then if you want to inspect any function which is not part of any PHP class, that is the global function, then this is the class from the Reflection API that you will utilize. So using this ReflectionFunction class, you can inspect any PHP function. And if you want to inspect any method of any class, then ReflectionMethod is the class that you will have to use. Then for the parameters, so if your function, be it a method or a global function, so if you want to inspect the parameters, then this is the class that you will utilize. And if you want to inspect the properties of a class, then this is the Reflection API class that you will use. Most of these classes functions you can already guess through the name. Okay, so now as you can see, this Reflection API contains a lot of classes, and then each of these classes contains a lot of methods as well. So instead of looking at and understanding Reflection API through the documentation, we are going to implement a class and we are going to understand the most important or most common parts of this Reflection API using our own code. So this is the code. I have already created one class. This is one simple class, and the name of the class is SampleClass, and it has two properties. The one property is public, the other one is private. The name of the public property is public property. It is of type string, and this is the value, its value. Then the second property is private, and the name of the property is private property, and the current value or the initial value is 55. Then we have a constructor function which takes one parameter, as you can see over here, and inside the body of this constructor, we are simply changing the private property value from 55 to whatever is being passed to the param. So this is one constructor. Then we have two methods, public method and private method. The name of the public function is public method and the name of the private function is private method. So we call a method a function when it's defined inside the class. So basically these two are methods. So the public method is given the name public method as well, and private method is given the name private method as well. The public method has two parameters. param1 of type string and param2 of type int. The return type is boolean. However, within the body, we are not using any of these params. It's just there so that we can inspect these parameters through our reflection API. That's it. Otherwise, it's simply returning true. Okay. Now, even though this looks like a silly method, we are passing parameters, but we are not utilizing it. But we are creating this in order to understand the different elements of reflection API that are available to us, through which we can inspect different elements of our code. It's just for that purpose. Okay. Then as far as the private method is concerned, it doesn't have any parameters and it's simply returning a string. That's it. Now we are going to create a reflection class that will hook on to this class. So each reflection class or any class from the reflection API has to be connected with some code in our program. And then using that reflection class, we can inspect this code. So now we have to create a reflection class for this sample class. Then using that reflection class, we can inspect different aspects of this sample class. So let's come down and let's create a reflection class. So let's create a variable named reflection class, which will contain an object of type reflection class. Now to this reflection class, we have to pass the name of the class that we want to inspect. Since we want to inspect this class, so we have to pass in the name of this class as a string. So sample class. So now a reflection class has been created, which has been mapped to this sample class. So now using this reflection class, we can inspect different aspects of this sample class. So first of all, let's try to figure out the name of the class. So we already know this is sample class because we passed it. We passed the name of the class to this reflection class. It's kind of a bit silly, but it does come in handy in our large projects in which the classes are passed in as a dependency, and until runtime, we don't know which class has been passed. So over there, getting to know the name of the class that has been passed dynamically comes in handy. But right now, it's going to sound silly. In fact, let me change it to something like, let's create a variable named class name and pass in sample class. And over here, let's pass in this variable class name. So now this reflection class has been passed in a parameter which could have any value. So now it makes more sense if you are trying to understand if you are trying to get to the name of this class, whatever class has been passed through this parameter, we want to get to know the name or actual name of that class. So we can say reflection class, then it has a method called getName. Using this getName method, now we can figure out what class has actually been passed in as a parameter to this reflection class. So let's attach the end of line, whatever is on my system. Now, since this is a very simple program, we don't need to run it on the server. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to execute it on command line. Okay, so this is the command line. This is the directory in which this program resides. So in order to execute it as a simple program rather than a server-side script, we are going to execute this program as PHP followed by the name of the file. So this is index.php. And since we don't see any output over here, that means the program has executed without any glitch. However, we are not seeing any output either. And it makes sense because we forgot to put in the echo command. Now, once more, let's execute it. Now you can see the name of the class is sample class. So next, what we are going to do is that we are going back to the documentation of this reflection class and see, using this class, how can we further inspect this sample class. Okay, so this is the reflection class, and these are all its constants. We can directly use them as well. This class also has this property name. So instead of calling this method getName, we can directly use this property as well because it's public property. So we can directly use that property as well to get the name of the class that this reflection class is inspecting. So again, we get the same result, sample class. Okay, now let's have a peek at the methods that are available to us in this class, ReflectionClass Class. Okay, so we have already used constructor because we have created an instance of reflection class. Now next, we can inspect constants, but our class doesn't have any constants, so it will return us null. We have these two classes, getConstant and getConstants. So this will return us an array of all the constants, and those constants will be objects of type ReflectionClass constant. And if you want to inspect just one constant, then you use this one, get constant, and you have to provide the name. It will again return us an object of type get class constant, and using that object you can further inspect the constants. But because we don't have any constant in the class, so let's move ahead. We can use this get constructor to see or to get access to the constructor method. So let's use this one, get constructor, and it will return us an object of type reflection method. So this gets the constructor of the reflected class. It returns us a reflection method object reflecting the class constructor, or null if the class has no constructor. And by this it means is that we haven't defined any constructor in the class. It only has default constructor. So in that case, the class will return null. But since we have defined a constructor, so we can inspect it. Okay, we have this one. So we can use method this get constructor, but it will return us an object of type reflection method. Then we will have to get into this object or the details of this class to further inspect the constructor. So what we are going to do is that, let's comment this out, and what we can do is that reflection class get constructor, we can call it this, we are calling this method get constructor, but because it will return us an object, so what we are going to do is that we are going to enclose it within print r, because we can't use echo to print array or object. So print r will display this object. Now it has returned us an object of type reflection method, and the name is __ construct, and the class it belongs to is SampleClass. So these are the two pieces of information that we have been returned. We will further explore this reflection method, but for the time being we are not going to get into the details of this method, because we will have this method reflection method objects returned for the other methods in the class as well. So we will dive deep into this class as well, but for the time being let's focus on the reflection class. Okay, so we got the, where were we? Yeah, we were over here, get constructor, get default properties. So this will return us, so all of these properties and their values. In this case, public, let's make it int just let's not type int it and just make prop, and we are not giving it any initial value, so it will most likely be null. Okay, so now using this function get default properties, it will return us an array. Let's go back, sorry, get default properties. So this will return us, so it will return us an array of default properties with the key being the name of the properties. So the indexes of this array will not be numeric values like 0, 1, 2, rather it will be a named array. Each index will be the name of the property, and the value will be the default value of the property or null if nothing is specified, if the property doesn't have any default value. The function does not distinguish between static and non-static. Okay, so again what we can do is that we can use print r, but we are going to iterate over them using for each. Okay, so reflection class and get default properties is key value pair. So key, or let's make it property and its value. So this property will contain the name of the property, public property, private property, and prop, and the value will contain this text, this value 55, or in the case of prop it's going to be null. So echo property space and value, then PHP end of line, clear screen. Okay, so this one is coming from the first one, and this is the name of the property, its value, the name of the property, its value, property, and null, because null can't be printed out, so it's empty over here. Okay, let's go back to the reflection class. So where were we? Get default properties. I think we have another one as well. So this is get default properties. It will only return us the name of the property and its value. However, if you want to deep dive into those properties, then we have these two methods, get properties and get property. If this is singular get property, we have to give the name of the property that we want to further inspect. So it will create an object of type reflection property on that property, using which we can further explore that property. Or if you use this get properties, then we will be returned an array of type reflection properties, and using that array of objects, we can further explore the properties. So we are going to go with this singular get property, and we are going to see what do we get in the reflection property. So let's delete everything. So let's create a variable. Reflection property is, we have to call this on this reflection class get property, and let's inspect this private property. Let's copy it. We have to pass the name as a string. So quotations and paste property name without the $sign. Okay, so now we have got an object of type reflection property, and let's use print r to print reflection property. Clear screen. So now we have got an object of type reflection property. The name is private property, and the class it belongs to is SampleClass. Okay. But since we have got an object of type reflection property, so we can further explore this property if we use one of the methods defined in this class, reflection property. All of these, but let's not go into that as well. Let's first explore the common methods in the reflection class. Okay, get property and get properties. Okay, we have used a single get property, so we can use get properties as well. In that case, this is going to be an empty, no parameters, because the parameters were optional. Get properties. Now let's see, what do we get? So we are getting an array with 3 elements. At index 0, we have an object of type reflection property, name and class. Again, at index 1, object of type reflection property, name and class, and blah blah blah. Okay. So this one also contains even more information than the available to be printed, but since we are just using print r to print, so this is the information get printed. Using the methods defined in this reflection property, we can further explore this property, which we will do in a minute. Okay, so let's go back to exploring reflection class. So get default properties, then documentations, extensions. Okay, get interfaces. We haven't yet any interfaces, so let's ignore it for the time being. Get methods and get method. Now we have again 2 methods to explore the methods defined in a class. If we want to explore one specific method, we have this get method. To this, we are going to pass the name of the method that we want to inspect as a string, and we will be returned a reflection method object. Using this reflection method object, we can further explore more information about that method. And if you want to get information about all the methods, then you can use this get methods method. It will return us an array of type reflection method. So let's now use get methods and iterate over them. Okay, get methods and methods. Now instead of printing through print r, let's iterate over them. For each ref methods as method, now let's dive deep into this reflection method and see what options do we have available over here. We have some constants. We can print the class name this method is part of, and the name as well. We can create individually the separate reflection method objects using this constructor method. We can invoke them as well. We can, okay, so these are the methods defined in the reflection method class itself. However, there are some inherited methods as well, like get name. We can get the name of the method, and number of parameters. We can use this to see how many parameters it has. We can get the number of required parameters. We can get all the parameters. We can see the return type. We can check if it has return type. Okay. We are going to use get name, get number of parameters, and get return type. Or what we are going to do is that, or we are just going to use this name to see the name of the method. Then we will come back again once we are done with the reflection class. Then we will explore this class in depth later on. So in the meantime, just print the name. So method. We can use get name or its public property name directly as well. Clear screen. Undefined method, reflection method name. Okay, sorry, it's because it's just a property, so we don't need to give it parentheses. Okay, so there is no name. Why? For each ref methods as method name. Okay, yeah, we are not echoing it out. That's why we were not getting any output. Clear screen. And now, okay, so underscore is a construct, public method, private method. Let's attach end of line. PHP end of line. Yeah, we have three methods: constructor, public method, and private method. Now we will dig deep into this reflection method class in a while, but let's go back to the reflection class again. So we got the methods get modifiers. Click on it. So it returns a bit field of the access modifiers for this class. So now this get modifiers will return us the access modifiers, but in numeric values, the bit mask. So the modifiers in this case are the access modifiers are final and abstract, not the visibility modifiers like public, private, protected. No, we are not talking about those ones. We are talking about the access modifiers, final, abstract, etc. So, but it will return us numeric values, and then we will have to go to the reflection class, singular reflection class, this one over here. From there we can get the names, this using this get modifier names, but we are not getting into it since we don't have any modifiers, access modifiers for our class anyway. So let's move further. Get modifiers, get name, get parent class. If this had been an inherited class, we would have used the parent class to get the parent class of this class. Get properties, we did cover it briefly. Reflection constants, we don't have any constants. Traits, we haven't used any traits. We can check if it has particular method using has method and particular property using has property. We can check if it's abstract or not using is abstract, is final. If it's an interface, we can use an interface method. So basically in Reflection API, both the classes as well as interfaces are treated as reflection classes. Okay. We can create an instance of the object the reflection class is currently inspecting using this new instance and new instance args. So you use this one if you don't have any parameters, or if you have parameters but you don't want to pass those parameters as an array, then you use this one. But if you want to pass them as an array, then you will use this new instance args method. So let's use this one new instance to create an object of type sample class by using this reflection class method. So click on this new instance. Check this one first. Create new instance of the class. The given arguments are passed to the class constructor. It accepts variable number of arguments which are passed to the class constructor. Okay. So let's delete this. Now we have this reflection class on this sample class. So let's create sample object using reflection class. So reflection class and new instance. And since we have this constructor which takes one param, so let's pass in 78, some value, random value. And now print R to check if this object has been created. Call to undefined method, new instance, S is missing. Okay, so now an object of type sample class has been created and we can only see the properties, 3 properties, not the methods. Okay, so this is how we create objects through ReflectionClass class. Okay, then what else? Okay, so now we have covered the basic methods in the reflection class. Now we are ready to dig deep into the, let's say, reflection properties and reflection methods. So let's start with reflection methods, or let's start with the reflection properties. This one, reflection property. So in the reflection class, there is methods like get property and get properties. We have two methods which will return us either a simple object of type reflection property or an array of reflection properties through which we can further explore the properties, or we can directly create the reflection property object on certain property of a class. We have already seen how to get access to these properties from this reflection class. Now let's individually create these reflection property objects and again explore those properties. Okay, so let's delete this and let's go to the reflection property. So these are constants, is static, read only, etc. And because there is a constructor, we can create this object. So we are going to create an object by passing in an object or a string, that is the class name, and then the property name. So the object that we created, we have deleted it. Let me go back. Okay, so now let's create reflection property, new reflection property, and to this we have to pass two parameters: the name of the class as a string, either as a string or as an object. So first let's create it as a string, copy, paste, and the second one is going to be the property that we are interested in. So let's inspect this private property. We have to pass in as a string as well, private property. Okay, so now we have got an object of type reflection property. Now let's see what else can we do with it. We can reflection property. So we can see the declaring class of this reflection property using get declaring class. So let's use this one. But first, let's print it to confirm that the reflection property has been created. Okay, let's comment this one. Undefined variable print r. Oh, remove this $sign. Clear screen. Okay, so now we have an object of type reflection property. The name is private property and it belongs to a class, sample class. Now we are going to see how can we create this reflection property where instead of passing the first parameter as a string, we are going to pass in the object. So we already have this object, sample object. So copy and paste it over here and let's run the program again. Again, we successfully created an object of type reflection property. This is the name, this is the class it belongs to. Okay, so now what we can do is that we are going to see the declaring class structure. So from this property, we want to see the code of the class this property belongs to. Let's comment this one out as well. So echo reflection property get declaring class. Okay, so this will give us the whole code of this sample object or this sample class. So clear screen. Let's go up. So we have been returned a sample class and it's defined on lines 2 to 16. So it starts at line 2 and it ends at line 16. Okay. Then it's telling us it doesn't have any constants, it doesn't have any static properties defined, it doesn't have any static methods defined. Then for the properties, it has three properties, public string property, and this is its value. This is the property number 2, this is property number 3. Since prop doesn't have any value, default value, so null is given. And then it has three methods. The first one is __ construct. It's public and it's defined on line 7 to 9. It has one parameter, so which is required, and the name is param. Then we have second method named public method, which is public as well. It's defined on line 10 to 12. It has two parameters. The parameter 0 is required and its type is okay. So it can be of two, and the param one can be of two types, string and int. I think I have added this offline, so let me remove it. I'll explain this thing later. So let's keep it simple for the time being. Okay, so in two parameters, the method 2, public method, has two parameters. The first one is string, name is param1. The second one is of type int and the name is param2 and it returns boolean. The third one is undefined. The third one's name is private method. Its defined on line 3 to 15, and it doesn't have any parameters and it doesn't have any return type defined either. So this is so through any particular property we can get the whole structure of the class the property is member of. Okay, then again modifiers will just tell us is it abstract or not, things like that. The access modifiers. Get name we have already seen, get raw value, okay. Get type. So we are going to have this get type with the parameters, return type, as well as the properties. So we have this type defined with properties, params, and then with the return types as well, like this one. So we will explore this get type when we come to exploring these parameters. Only then we will explore this get type, because only then I will be able to tell you different subtypes of types. So I'm going to skip it for the time being. Get value will return us the value of that particular property that we are currently exploring. Okay, let's click on it. If the property is non-static, an object must be provided to if the property is non-static, an object must be provided to fetch the property from. Okay, that means with this get property we have to provide the object this property is member of. So for this get value method we must provide the object the property is part of, because only in the objects the properties have values, and each object might have different value for the same property. So therefore we must provide the name of the object whose particular property value we are interested in. So get value. Now first parameter is going to be the object, so sample object. And the second one, what was the second one? Okay, we have only one. Okay, got it. Now what this will do is that it will go to the sample object and look into this private properties with current value and display it. It's 78. Because when I created this object, I passed in the 78 to the constructor and it changed the private property value. The initial value is 55. Okay, let's go back to the reflection property and let's explore further. So where were we? Get value. We were at get value. Okay, has default value. Okay. So the two of the properties have default values, the other one has null. Okay, so it will return Boolean for the first two and the false for the second one. And let's see, is private, is final, protected, read only. Okay. Okay, I think we are done with exploring reflection property. Now we can move on to reflection method. Okay, let's go to the reflection method. And this is the class. So we have some constants. We have two public properties. One is class, the second one is inherited, which is name. We can create an instance of reflection method for any of the methods, even for the constructor. Okay. So first of all, let's create an object of type reflection method. Again, we can get an object of type reflection method by directly creating an instance of reflection method on one of the methods in the class, or we can get it from reflection class. So the reflection class has two methods, get method and get method. So both of them will give us objects of type reflection method. But now we are creating individually. Now we are going to create reflection method instead of getting it through reflection class, because we have already seen that part. Okay, so let's come down and let's delete this thing. Let's create reflection method, new reflection method, and to this constructor we can either pass an object or a string which will represent the class whose one of the methods we want to inspect through this reflection method object. So the first one is going to be the class name and the second one is going to be the method that we want to inspect through this reflection method object. So the first one is going to be, we are going to use the sample object, and the second one, let's use this public method. We need to pass it as a string. So public method. So now we have an object of type reflection method on this method, public method. We can use this reflection method object to inspect this method. Okay. So we can get the name and the class using these two properties. The name is going to be the name of the property itself, and the class is going to be the class the method is member of. Okay, and since we have seen many examples of this, so let's move ahead. Again, we can use this get declaring class to get the code of this code of the class whose member this particular method is. Get modifiers, prototype, has prototype. We can invoke any method. We are going to call this one. Okay, is abstract is we can check if this method is a constructor or not. So let's use this. So echo is constructor and ref method is constructor. So if it's true, print yes, else print no. Let's have a peek. Is constructor no? Okay. Now if we change the method from public method to __ construct, then it will print yes. Is constructor yes? Okay. We can check if it's final, private, etc. Okay, so these are the methods defined in the reflection method itself. Then we have some inherited methods. We can get the name of the method through getName. We can get the number of parameters and number of required parameters, get return type. So let's start with get number of parameters. So it will return us the number of parameters the method has. Echo ref method get number of parameters. So for the public method, constructor has one method, so it will print 1. Yeah, if we change it to public methods, let's make it private method, which is 0 parameter, so it will give us 0. Yeah. So this one, get number of required parameters, will again give us the same value because in our case we have all the parameters required. Then this get parameters will return us all the parameters, the list of all the parameters as an array, and each element of that array is going to be an object of type reflection parameter. So since it will return us an array, so we are going to use print r reflection method get parameters. Private has 1, public has 2, so let's change it to public so that we can see both the parameters. Undefined property get parameters. Oh, $, because of this $. There is node. Oh, parenthesis. I forgot to give this parenthesis. Okay. Okay, so now we have been returned an array. First element of this array is an object of type reflection parameter, name is param1. The second is also object of type reflection parameter and name is 2. We will look into this reflection parameter class in a while, but currently we are exploring reflection methods. So let's go back to the reflection method, and we can check if it has return type. It will return as boolean true or false. So for let's check. The public method has return type boolean, so it will return as true. Has return type, it will return true for public method. For the other two, it will not print anything. Okay, 1 means true. For the others, it will not print anything because it will return 0 and 0 will not get printed. Okay, so let's change it to private method, and now, okay, so nothing got printed. It means it was false. Okay, has return type, then we can also get return type. Where is it? Yeah, there it is. It will return us an object of type reflection type. So we are going to return it in, so we will explain this reflection type in a bit, but just have a peek. Reflection get return type. So this will return us null if the return type is not defined. Like for the private method, there is no return type defined. Only for the public method, we have return type boolean. So it will not print anything because null is not printed on the screen. Again, so no output. However, if we change the method from private to public, we will get the return type, which will be a subtype of reflection type. So we have got an object of type reflection name type. It's a subtype of reflection type. We will explain those reflection types when we look into this class reflection parameter. Okay. Now we are going to invoke the method using invoke method of this reflection method. So we have two methods to invoke any method in the reflection API. The first one is invoke and second is invoke args. Both of them takes an object as a first parameter because the object is going to be the object on which we are going to invoke any method. And the second one is going to be the list of parameters that the method itself requires. In the first one, we can pass the parameters as a comma separated list. In the second one, we have to pass those parameters as an array. So we are going to go with this invoke one where we are going to pass the parameters as a comma separated list. So let's look into this invoke. Okay, so what we are going to do is that we are going to invoke, let's start with this public method. It has two parameters. Okay, so, and it will return us whatever is being returned by the parameter, by the method itself. So in the case of public method, we are not echoing out anything, so nothing will be printed on the screen unless after the invoke, whatever output, whatever we get returned as a result of executing the invoke method on this method, we have to separately print it out. So what we are going to do is that echo ref method invoke. The first parameter is going to be the object, so we are passing sample object, and the second one is going to be the parameters needed by this public method. So this public method requires two parameters. First one is a string, second one is int, even though it doesn't do anything with those parameters. But let's pass in hello as a first parameter and 12 as a second parameter. So this will return true, and then with echo it will print it on the screen as a 1. Okay, now we see the 1. Okay, now we are going to check. We are going to execute this private method which doesn't have any parameters. This again returns some string. So we have to place this echo, and because it doesn't have any parameters, so this is just going to be one object, simple object. Let's change the method over here to private method. And with invoke, we don't have to provide the parameters if we don't need them. Let's have a look, and we got the text private method called. Had we used this invoke args method, then we would have been forced to provide a second parameter even if it's an empty array. Okay, so that was the difference between these two invokes. I think we are done with the method. Now we are moving on to reflection parameters. So this reflection parameters is going to be about the parameters that are being passed to the methods like these two. So again, we can get an objects of type reflection parameters through reflection classes. So from this reflection classes, we can get access or objects of type reflection methods, and from there we can get reflection parameters. We have already seen how this is done through reflection class. Now we are going to separately create reflection parameters. Now to create an object of type reflection parameter, this is the constructor. So if you notice, it has two parameters. The first one could be a string, an array or object, and it's named function for a specific reason, which I'm going to explain in a bit. And then the second one is going to be an int or a string. So basically, the second one is going to be the name of the parameter most of the time. Int means you instead of giving the name of the parameter, you can specify the position of the parameter as well. For example, if in our case, if we want to create an object of type reflection parameter to inspect this param2, we can either provide the name, so it will be param2, or we can specify its position. So over here, it is at position number 1. So this is position 0, this is position 1. So you can also give, instead of giving the name, you can give the position of that parameter as well. Now let's move on to this part, first parameter. Now over here it says the function can be a string, an array, or object. So basically you can create this reflection parameter on the parameter of a method which is part of a class, or some global function as well. So for example, if we have a global function, let's say move over here, let's comment this out, and over here let's create a function myfunc, and it is param1 and param2, two parameters, and it just echoes out, this is global function, not part of any class. So it just displays this echo message. Now we can create a reflection parameter on this and this function's parameters as well. So if it's the first case, let's create a reflection parameter. So reflection param equals new reflection parameter. Now you can pass the name of this function as a string, myfunc, as a first parameter. So we are passing the name of the function as a string. Now as a second parameter, you can pass the name of the parameter as string over here like this, or you can also pass the position. Sorry, position is position number 1. This param2 is at position 2. So this is going to be passing some function as a string. Now we can also do the same for some method of some class. So for example, if we want a reflection parameter on, let's use this public method. Okay, now because this public method is part of the sample class, so another way to create a reflection parameter is, let's copy paste it and let's give it name ReflectionParam2. Now over here, the first parameter is going to be an array, because we not only have to provide the name of the method, but we also have to provide which class it belongs to. So we can do that by using SampleClass, and the second one is going to be public method. So this is first parameter as an array, and as a second parameter, let's pass in param1. So this refparam2 is going to represent this parameter of public method, which is part of sample class, and this refparam represents this function's second parameter. The third way, where it's talking about this object, is now we have created this sample object, so we can pass the sample object as well. So let's copy paste this. Let's change it to 3. Reflection parameter. Now instead of passing the name of the class as a string, let's pass in the object itself, sample object, and the method, let's use private method this time, private method. So these are 3 different ways to directly create object of type reflection parameter. The other one being from the reflection class. From this reflection class, you get a you use some of the method which will return you reflection method, and from this reflection method you can create reflection parameter. So that was, I think we have covered this part, how to create reflection parameters from reflection methods and how to create reflection methods from reflection class over here. So that's why we are over here just checking individual ways of creating reflection methods. Okay, so now we have 3 objects, each pointing to different parameters. So let's start with function 1 and get its name and value. So we have passed the parameter as a position. Okay, so what methods have we got over here? So we can get the names as well directly, or we can use getName as well. So let's just echo out ref param1 equals ref param name, then copy and paste. This is ref param2 name, and paste ref param3 name, and over here ref param3 name as well. So let's test it out in the command prompt. Syntax is unexpected end of line on line 39. Forgot to put in semicolon. Okay. PHP index.php. Okay, so we've got undefined variable param1 on line 33. Line 33, sample class, public method. Okay, param1. So if you notice over here in the constructor, we can either pass the param name as a string or its position as integer. So we have to convert this into a string. Now I think the private method in our case, where is it? Yeah, we don't have any parameter for the private method, so we are going to change it to construct, and we are passing the name param. Okay, So for the second one, instead of private method, make it underscore underscore construct, and the name of the parameter is just param without any dollar signs. Okay, now let's run it. Clear screen. Okay, so ref param1's name is param2. So yeah, ref param1's name is param2, ref param2's name is param1, and ref param3's name is just param. Okay, now we can get the, this is get name, we can get the value as well, hopefully. Where is it? Get default value. So name is this. Now change it to get default value. Okay. I think we have to enclose it within the curly brackets because parenthesis turns into a string otherwise. Let's run it. Okay. Okay, so we can't do that. So let's echo ref param1 dot get default value. PHP end of line. Copy paste it twice. Ref param. Okay, it's no. Okay. It's ref param2, and ref param3. Okay, dot is missing. Call to undefined function get default value. Oh, silly me. We don't need dots, we need arrow over here because we are calling methods on specific objects. Okay. Let's execute one more time. Again, failed to retrieve the default value on line 37. Okay, I think what's happening is that we need to provide all our parameters some default values. So param1, let's make it 62. Param2, let's make it 55. Okay, so we need to give default values to all of the parameters. Okay, so param1, let's make it moon. Param2, let's make it day. And for the constructor param, let's make it what shall we make it? It's not a string. Let's make it 33. Okay, what happened now? What? Okay, int. This is param2 with an integer type. We can't give it string value. Okay, fine. Okay, now clear screen and one more time execute. Okay, so we got 55, moon, and 33. Okay, so I hope by now you are clear that we have three different ways to create reflection parameters directly. Indirectly, we can create reflection parameters through reflection method as well. Okay, now we can display the names of them. Okay, we did the name one. Now get name and get default value. Let's explore what else do we have. We can also get the class. From that it will return us the reflection class, and we can get the structure of the whole class over here as well. Then we can get the position of each parameter in the method or function by using get position. Now let's use this. We can also check if the parameters have a type or not, and then get type to get the type. If we use this get type, it returns us an object of type reflection type. So for the ref param, let's make it get type over here as well for everything. Remember, we haven't specified type for every parameter, but first let's see what does it returns us. Okay, why just string? We can't echo it because we are being returned a reflection type object. So we have to print R it. Call to undefined function. R is missing over here. Again string, why? Okay, I think it's because of this PHP end of line. So we are just being returned one object of type reflection name type. What about the other two? Ref param2, ref param3. Okay, let's go through them. Ref param1 represents the function. Got it. Okay, got it. Now because this param1 does not have any type specified, so we are not getting any output for this one. And then ref param2 is public method and param1. So param1 we have specified the type over here. Where did it? Yeah. So as you can see for this param1 we have type printed it with string. So we are getting the output for this one. So we are being returned an object of type reflection name type. So I'm going to explain this in a bit, but let's check the third one as well. For the third one, it's ref param3. It's on what? It's on constructor object. Sorry, constructor parameter. Now again for the constructor parameter, we haven't defined any type. If we give it int, we will see the output as reflection name type. Okay, so this is again reflection name type, an object of type reflection name type. Now what is happening is that even though it says the return type should be reflection type, we are actually seeing reflection name type for the other two parameters. But for the function we are not getting because we haven't given any type to function parameters. So if you are not giving any type to parameters, we will not be returned. We will be basically returned null, which can't be printed on the screen. For the other two, both are simple types, integer and string. So when the types are simple types or singular types like this string or integer, we get a subtype of reflection type. So this reflection type has three subtypes: reflection name type, reflection union type, and reflection intersection type. So when they are simple types, we get the subtype reflection name type. We will get reflection union type if over here we say like this param3 can return an integer value or it can return some string value. Now we have two different data types that this param can represent. So now this one will return, the constructor will return reflection union type. Okay, so the second one, if you notice that it has been changed to object of type reflection union type. When we haven't defined any type for the parameters, we will be returned null. When we have defined one type for the parameters, we will be returned reflection name type. And when we have defined more than one type for any parameter, we will be returned reflection union type. The last one, it's a bit advanced, so we are not discussing this one. Now let's go back again to reflection parameters, reflection parameter class, and reflection parameter. Okay, and let's see, is there anything else that we need to discuss? I think this is it. Now we can move on to reflection function over here. So when we have a function, independent or global function, which is not part of any class, like this one that we have created, my function, we can create an object of type reflection class, reflection function, through which we can inspect that function. So the constructor takes either a closure or a function name. So closure means we can directly pass the whole function. Let me comment this out. Okay. And let's comment these two out. In fact, comment everything out. Why just comment? Let's delete it. Now let's create an object of type reflection function. And we have to pass in the function name. So my func as a string. Print underscore r to verify that this function has been created. So it's returning us an object of type reflection function. The name is my function. So if you have functions outside any class, this is the class in the Reflection API through which you can inspect it. So again, you can invoke it. It checks is it disabled, other things, and these are inherited methods. So basically they are again the same: get name, number of parameters, required parameters, get parameters, return type. So it doesn't have anything new except for the way through which we can inspect it. So we can create a separate class through which we can inspect it. Okay, then we have interfaces. And for interfaces, we don't have any separate reflection class. We inspect them through this reflection class as well. So for the interfaces, there is nothing new that we need to discuss. And I think with this, we are done with the overview of Reflection API. Obviously, if you want to learn more about it, you can look into it. And the other way to get a grip on this Reflection API is in the next video, we are going to implement dependency injection concept using Reflection API. I'm sure you are all aware of dependency injection concept. It's part of every object-oriented framework. So I hope you liked this video. If you did, give me a thumbs up, encouraging me by leaving positive comments, sharing it with your friends, and subscribing to my channel. That will mean a lot to me. Thank you so much. Happy coding. And don't forget to watch the next part.